plus 133%. That's how much the price of a Big Mac has increased in France since the year 2000. The sandwich has more than doubled, and kebabs have followed exactly the same path.
You're hanging out with some friends and really craving some quick and easy food. You pull into a place like McDonald's and place a simple order. Let's say 2 Big Macs, a box of chicken nuggets, 2 large fries, and 2 drinks. You arrive at the window and the cashier looks at you and says your total is $36.
For years, we've all accepted a very simple deal with fast food. Yes, it was lower quality than a homemade meal. Yes, it wasn't gourmet cuisine, but we turned a blind eye because in exchange, it was fast and above all, it was cheap. That was the deal. Mediocrity, but for next to nothing and in 2 minutes. Except that today, this deal no longer exists because fast food has become expensive without getting any better. When you pay more than 15 euros for your meal, the real question is whether it's still worth it. Because for that price, you can start to afford something else. A real dish in a bistro or at an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. So how did the cheapest meal in France become a luxury that we hesitate to treat ourselves to? Where does your money really go when your kebab doubles in price? And what if I told you that the restaurant isn't the one taking the biggest cut in this story? Because behind all this is a specific economic phenomenon that explains why, once prices go up, they almost never come back down. Hey Team Mindset, I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to tell you about the death of a promise, the promise of fast food that promised us 2 things, speed and low prices. The rest we accepted, but that promise was buried alive. In this video, we'll see how we got here, who really benefits from it, and most importantly, what our alternatives are. Let's go. In France, the average price of a kebab has increased by more than 40% in 5 years, and the meal has gone from 6.50 to over 10 in many cities. And it's not just because of the seller's greed. The kebab meat, the famous spit, has gone from about 30 euros to 66 euros for 5 kilos. When your raw material doubles, your selling price follows. It's automatic. The poor kebab owner is often not to blame. He's suffering just as much as you are.
Kebab shops, neighborhood fast food places, but they're taking the full brunt of the increase in raw material prices. To avoid shutting down, they raise their prices, risking, yes, losing their customers.
When I was young in Lyon's Tête de Ville neighborhood, kebabs were still about 4 euros in the late 2000s. Today on the same street, that same kebab often costs more than 7 euros, sometimes even 10. And to help you realize just how huge this market is, hold on tight. People eat nearly 1 million kebabs a day in France, which means about 4,000 kebabs have been eaten since the start of this video. It's a market worth 3 to 3.3 billion euros. It's a pillar of French food, but the rising price is only the first betrayal, because fast food hasn't just become more expensive, it's also become slower and less tasty, and that too has a name. Economists call this skimpflation. It's a term invented in 2021 by an American economic journalist, Greg Rosowski. The idea is simple and you'll recognize it right away. Classic inflation is when the price goes up. Skimpflation is when the price stays the same, but quality and service go down. Fewer staff, so longer wait times. Ordering at a kiosk instead of a smile from a real person. Lower quality ingredients. You pay the same or even more, but you get less for your money.
This cheese, syrup, powdered sugar, and chocolates have changed. But what happened? Well, actually, the price didn't change, but the quantity went down.
Several brands have secretly decided to make us eat less for the same price.
Here's the first slap in the face. Fast food has broken its promise on all 3 fronts at once. More expensive, slower, and worse. But there's an even more interesting question you need to ask yourself. When you pay twice as much for your kebab or your meal, where does all that money really go? And the answer will surprise you. When the price of your meal goes up, you logically think that it's the restaurant that pockets the difference. But the reality is more complicated, and a big part of your money goes to people you'd never even suspect. The first big invisible winner is the delivery apps. Because today, a huge portion of fast food is ordered on Uber Eats or Deliveroo. And what people don't know is that these platforms take a cut from every order. Uber Eats takes about 30% per order. Deliveroo between 25 and 32%.
Uber Eats screws everyone. Let me give you an example. If I want to get a pad thai from the noodle box near where I live, it costs $11.45. However, if I go onto the Uber Eats app, I can buy it for $14.08. And this is before they charge me $2.99 for a delivery fee on top of another 10% as a service charge.
Take a moment to think about what that means. On a 20 euro menu that you order from your couch, The platform can take up to €6. By adding payment and marketing fees, the total cost can rise to 30 to 50% of the delivery revenue. So obviously, to avoid working at a loss, the restaurant has only one solution: raise its prices. And it's you at the end of the line who pays the app's commission without even knowing it. The second invisible winner is even more impressive and involves the biggest player, McDonald's. McDonald's real wealth isn't from hamburgers, but from real estate.
You're not in the hamburger business. You're in the real estate business. McDonald's, the world's #1 hamburger chain where performance and competition rule.
McDonald's has a unique business model in the world.
It makes money from burgers, of course, but mostly from real estate. The brand is the largest employer in the country.
The company is the world's most valuable fast food chain, well ahead of competitors.
4 times bigger.
Than a
Competitor, go watch so much.
And its secret is that it owns more than $40 billion in real estate. But then,
How does McDonald's make its money? McDonald's is actually one of the biggest real estate companies in the world, disguised as a burger seller. In 1956, the company formed a corporation to purchase its restaurant land and buildings, then lease them to franchisees. The restaurant is just a tenant that generates cash for its owner, McDonald's. Chief Financial Officer Harrison Bourne summed up this strategy with a now famous phrase: "We're not in the hamburger business, we're in real estate." And that finally explains something you've definitely noticed: why all McDonald's now look the same everywhere, with these sad and interchangeable buildings. Because for a real estate owner, the decor doesn't matter. What matters is that the place brings in rent. The gray McDonald's in your shopping area isn't a restaurant. It's a financial asset that sells fries. So that's the system. Apps take a cut, McDonald's profits from real estate, and you pay more and more. But by pushing it too far, something happened that the giants didn't see coming. The system started to jam up on its own. When you keep raising prices, there's a point where the customer can't take it anymore. And at that moment, they do the only thing that really scares these giants. They stop coming, and the numbers prove it. In 2024, McDonald's experienced its first global sales drop in 13 quarters, something that hasn't been seen in years. And at the beginning of 2025, there was another drop, the biggest since the pandemic, with a decrease of 3.6% in the United States. The CEO himself admitted that visits from lower and middle-income customers had dropped by double digits.
A new menu called McDeal for €5 with more beef or chicken and an extra item compared to the McStart, their previous low-priced offer.
And this is exactly where the most important concept of this video comes in. The one that explains why cheap prices will never really come back. This phenomenon is called the Ratchet effect, or in English, rockets and feathers.
Fuel prices remain just as high, close to the €2 mark, and are inflated by the distributors' explosive gross margins. At the beginning of 2022 for unleaded 95, their margin was around 19 euro cents per litre. Last April, it reached 27 cents. Incomprehensible.
The idea was theorized as early as 1991 by the economist Robert Bacon while studying the price of gasoline. And it's brutal when costs go up, prices rise immediately, shooting up like a rocket. But when costs go down, prices only fall very slowly, like a feather drifting down. But to be honest, they almost never really go back to their original level. Apply that to your kebab. The price of steak doubled and the price of the kebab shot up like a rocket. But the day the price of meat goes down, will your kebab go back to €3.50? Of course not. It will stay at 7, 8, or even 10 euros. The shopkeeper knows very well that we've gotten used to this price. The ratchet only turns one way. And that's the harsh reality of this story. Cheap fast food isn't just in crisis. It's dead, and it's not coming back. And behind the story about prices, there's a much more serious social reality. When the cheapest meal becomes a luxury, the whole country must tighten its belt.
How much did you lose in 2022 compared to the previous year? Also, a study by INSEE reveals the amount of disposable income lost by the French. In short, the purchasing power lost by the French because of inflation, right? Yes.
€720. This amount takes into account everything the government has put in place to ease the impact of inflation on households, the price shield on gas and electricity, the fuel discount, and also the extra energy voucher payments.
Today in France, 24% of people say they have reduced the number of meals they eat in a day because of inflation. And this number rises to 39% among young people. Worse, among the lowest income workers, more than half, 54%, say they do not have enough to eat. We're no longer talking about giving up a small treat. We're talking about people skipping meals. But people haven't always just watched these giants. On August 12, 1999, about 300 farmers led by a man named José Bové literally dismantled a McDonald's under construction in Millau. And all of this was to protest against American tariffs that targeted French products like Roquefort cheese, Bove even went to prison for it, but he became a symbol.
In France as well, a McDonald's restaurant was targeted. It happened today in Millau, in the Aveyron region. French farmers wanted to denounce the American trade sanctions against several of our products, including Roquefort cheese, which actually comes from this region.
Today, under pressure from consumers and farmers, McDonald's France is forced to source about 75% of its agricultural products from 3,000 partner farms in France. This proves that when customers and citizens wake up and demand better, even the biggest giant is forced to give in. But if cheap fast food is dead, what's next? What will replace it? Because people still need to eat quickly and affordably, and nature abhors a vacuum. And several alternatives are already on the rise. Homemade meals and bringing lunch to work are making a comeback, as cooking at home is now more cost-effective than ordering food. Second, all-you-can-eat options like buffets are appealing again, since you can get a full meal and a place to sit for the price of fast food. Third, the local bakery cuts prices on sandwich and drink combos, taking market share from big chains. And finally, discount store grab-and-go food, offering something to eat on the go for a fraction of the price. And behind all this, there's a simple business bet. Fast food is stuck in the middle. Too expensive to be an emergency meal, too mediocre to be a real pleasure. That's the worst market position. Brands that survive choose a side, either very cheap or very high quality. Those in the middle get crushed from both ends. And that's where the real business lesson of this story lies. A brand can raise its prices, reduce its portions, cut back on its service, and think it's getting richer. But it forgets one thing. The customer will forgive almost anything, except feeling like they're being taken for a fool. Trust takes 20 years to build and can be destroyed with a single receipt. A bit like Quick, the Belgian fast food chain that dominated France for years and ended up losing everything after a series of strategic mistakes, as you can see in the video on screen.